If you remember from Monday's video, I hyped shamans up a lot, and it's for good reason. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll see just how important these figures were in the formation of religion and really history in general. Today we're taking a look at the impact that shamans have had on religion throughout the years. Shamans take on a very distinct and unique identity in the ancient world. They're known for their ability or their kind of induced behavior to go into altered states of consciousness. And in these states of consciousness, they learned different tasks, learned different skills that they could bring back to their people. Shamans serve this super important purpose in society as a bridge from the regular everyday person to the supernatural. Again, through really that bridge in this situation is altered states of consciousness. A fantastic book that talks all about the supernatural world of these shamans is Supernatural, actually is the name of it, by Graham Hancock. It talks all about the impact that altered states of consciousness and different hallucinogens have had on the face of religion. Quickly, I want to dive into this question that I always had personally was how were shamans vindicated? How are they confirmed? Who believed that they were in touch with the supernatural? It really comes down to three different factors. One is that altered states of consciousness are real. Many people in their society would have experienced altered states of consciousness, whether it be through, through sleeping, for example, or even through the induced versions like using different hallucinogens and smoking different things or having different teas, for example. So watching a shaman go into an altered state of consciousness was extremely real and something that people experienced. Some populations even distributed tons of hallucinogens to the people so that the entire community could be involved in this altered states of consciousness, further vindicating the reality of hallucinations. Number two is that honestly, shamans kind of game the system. First, that they could go spy on their patients. If they saw somebody who was extremely sick and really hopeless, they wouldn't go and offer help to that person. Instead, they'd pick someone who looked healthier, who was maybe beating their sickness and they could tell, and then offer healing to them. Also, the nature of sickness by itself is that most people who get sick survive. So the shaman's kind of rate of success here is bound to be positive. Lastly, in the event that someone did die under the shaman's healing, he could just say that it was their will and that he's been kind of called to the gods. Number three is that through the evolution of medication, kind of this trial and error version of healing, shamans did improve. They did get better at healing people in the long run. So now that we understand why people believe these shamans and why people would actually go to them, we have to now understand what's in it for the shaman. The first thing is that there's a payment. Shamans did oftentimes charge people for specific healings. They also kind of held a position of popularity and respect. People looked up to the shamans. Another thing is that shamans got to practice polygamy, which wasn't widely practiced in their communities, which is basically just having multiple partners. So shamans throughout ancient history obviously evolved a lot. There were good shamans and there were bad ones. The good shamans were oftentimes said not to be really in touch with the supernatural or very weak connection with the supernatural, and that their gods perhaps were not looking upon them very well. From the other perspective, shamans who really did perform well and did have that influence were looked at as being favored by the gods. As a result, the more powerful gods kind of made their way to the top. The more powerful shamans that were backed by these gods that, again, were supposedly extremely powerful, got to rule, got to be the head of certain communities, and got to be really influential leaders. From this, we see two academic perspectives of shamans. Now, these are perspectives that you see from tons of different history professors and history individuals in history, academia, and the study and the research of these shamans. From this, we get two different perspectives of who shamans were in the ancient world. The first one is shamans as politicians. At this time, from hunter-gatherers, as we talked about Monday, they traveled around in very small groups, maybe 25, 50, 100 people at the most. In the times of ancient shamans, we have much larger groups of people, and hundreds of people, thousands of people. And from this, different social dynamics emerge. One is shamans as politicians. They become the first lawmakers. And the laws, in this sense, something I find so fascinating is that the laws were enforced by the gods. It wasn't so much that the shaman himself would go and punish somebody for stealing from their neighbor, But he would say, and he would make sure that everybody knew, that if you did steal from your neighbor, the gods would look at you differently, and they wouldn't respect you, and that really karma, in a sense, wouldn't be on your side. This is kind of bringing up the question, is it for power? Religion, in this sense, kind of benefited just the top 1%. These are people who had all the power, had all the money, and they also got to make the rules. So ask yourself, do you think that the shaman's influence on society was just for power? Whereas we'll get into the second perspective, was it more for the people? Another common perspective that people have on shamans is that they were spiritual leaders. They helped to bring about good morality. They helped enforce good behavior in their population. They also enforced laws to keep people safe and keep people happy. And really, most importantly, they answered the biggest questions that people had. And at this point in time, those questions like the weather. What's the weather going to be like? Why is the weather how it is? Another question that they might have is misfortune. How come my grandpa died yesterday? How come I broke my foot? Or questions like fortune. How come I found a gold nugget or whatever? How come I had a huge successful day going and hunting and gathering different things? This kind of brings about the question, were hunter-gatherers good for society? This idea that spiritual belief really benefited all the participants and even the people who weren't participating in a group or in a village of people who all believe the same things, that you shouldn't steal because the gods will look down on you poorly. That didn't just benefit all the people that believed, but the people who didn't really care about the belief. They didn't get stolen from because everyone around them believed that it was bad to steal. It's so interesting. We talk about this, the effect that church has on state and the state has on church, and it's really ingrained in the first societies, in the first villages that pop up. We see this kind of tension between the political influence of shamans and their role as spiritual leaders in their societies. This tension grows, molds, and changes all throughout history. And again, we're going to be diving into those questions and those topics here at Atlas. So if you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.